extreme. And we made the platform because these shows, even though Hollywood is saying we want to be inclusive and we want to do these important, they don't. Because they all passed. They loved it, but they wouldn't put it on. It was too edgy. It's about Native Americans with a Latin lead.
So okay, look, people. Again, this is what Dave Chappelle does too. This is what most black artists do. They continually use the euphemism Hollywood for rich Jewish executives. That's it. Okay? Granted, it's not 100%, but the people calling the shot. Okay, everything is about finding approval in the human psychology. So the people beneath, the way they get up the ranks to become an executive at any level is by doing whatever they can to seek the approval of the person at the top. So we saw this in old school Hollywood with Myers or whatever the guy's name is, who was the pre-Harvey Weinstein that is still celebrated in Jewish communities and culture, whatever you want to call it, as some kind of icon of Jewish success. They're like, gloss over, yeah, sure, he was a deplorable human being, but hey, he built a really successful business. So, give him that. Okay, so this type of thing, actually, on this, I thought I was recording, okay. This type of thing is what makes me really, the part that brought me to a new level of hatred of Israel. As a matter of fact, let me do this. Let me see if I can find this. Indigenous. Okay, Indigenous Christian CBN. Yeah. Australia, I think. Christian Broadcast Network. So Israel got this group in Australia of wow, it didn't give me Christian, what the heck, man? 700 Club, maybe. Wow, I wonder if they took it down. So they had this group of a small, very small minority of Australian Aborigines. And the word in English, because it's the Anglosphere, and that means that we are confined to English. Aboriginal is not original. It's like abnormal. Okay, ab is to come in between, to separate. That's why Abraham's name, both of his names, his first name is Abram, and then the second name is Abraham. We don't understand, but he's telling them the whole point of that character as a mythological device or literary device is to come in between and separate something from something else. I claim that it's to separate the human sentient capacity to form an individual identity from the overarching, also critical need of the human being to imitate in order to find a place in life. It's a balance. But if you can destroy the balance, divide and conquer. So, darn, I'm not going to find it. Let me just go into these guys and go to their channel. I can't search their channel. I got to watch videos. It was... So, but my whole point is that what happened was that you had Israel send, so this small group of evangelical identified specifically. So I, they have no connection whatsoever to the Australian Aboriginal culture whatsoever. Their identity is wrapped up in Reform Judaism, which Christianity and Islam, when you strip down all the bullshit that people say, it's Reform Judaism. That's all it is. Muslims, the reason that Palestinians are contribute to the justification that Israel uses to get away, to even do what they want to do, to make the claims that they want to claim, is because the foundation of the religion of Islam is that Judaism is the one true religion. It's just that along the path, the Jews misinterpreted or got the message wrong or got distracted or something like that. And the Muslims are trying to restore the original message, which means that it's a form of Reform Judaism. Christianity is basically saying the same thing. The Jews were the ones that introduced to Christians the notion that there's going to be some Messiah. And then all of a sudden, the Jews got distracted and missed the Messiah. So the Christians are saying, we figured out who the Messiah is based on Judaism being accurate in the first place. Okay? So these evangelical Aborigine people, they have a conference of indigenous peoples. So they have a small congregation, basically. It's not even a segment of the population, really, but a small congregation of evangelical Aborigines from Australia, and then some evangelicals coming from New Zealand to have a conference on indigenous people's rights. And they invite the Israeli government because project the idea that Israelis are the indigenous population of Palestine, and they're involved in, this is very crazy stuff, because they're involved in the same struggle of the indigenous people of New Zealand and Australia, which would identify the Palestinians as effectively the white Australians and the white New Zealanders. Chew on that. That's why, I mean, when I saw what the role that the Israeli representative played in milking that thing, compared to, there were no Native Americans there. Because my whole thing is, when you look at the relationship between the Jews in America and the Native Americans, you see that the Jews, who claim to be an indigenous population who had their homeland stolen, have no identification, have no relationship, have no respect, have no regard, have no empathy, have no compassion, have nothing whatsoever except for the same perspective as the white, quote unquote, white oppressors, colonists or occupiers of the Native Americans. That's it. There is no distinction. They make no distinction. But then when they want to exploit the title of indigenous, oh man, they really went to milk that, and that got me really, really pissed off. 3 weeks ago. Oh no, it's way more than that. Damn, this guy just put a lot of news out. Or am I at 1 month? I'm just guessing here, as you can see. So if I get it, anyways, I'm not gonna find it. So, but this is another thing too. John Louisiana just did is, he's telling you what Jews in America don't want, what they actively do. You're gonna not just don't want. What Jews in America actively use their resources to is to repress, suppress, and oppress the indigenous population of the Native Americans. They don't want them to have a voice at all. They don't want them to have a presence. They have worked for decades in order to exclude and reduce and minimize them to a negligent component of reality. Meanwhile, they are trying to amplify and complain and project. So while Jews ran the entire fucking studios and were fucking millionaires and living it up in the days of Ike and Truman and Kennedy and LBJ and Nixon, and were dominating the fucking White House political thing, you had Native Americans that didn't have, that were constantly, and lawyers. You gotta understand the role of Jewish lawyers in the federal government is a huge part in land grabs from Native Americans. So I'm not gonna follow this. Find it. But I just want to make a point here that you got to understand the Jews in America are enemies to America, the American identity. They want Americans to feel that Native Americans are a threat to the American identity. Meanwhile, Native Americans, they're at a point where they're not trying to conquer the land. They're like, okay, we're here. You're not going to wipe us out. But Jews are like, oh, yeah, really? We might not be able to wipe you out yet, but we're going to erase you for the meantime. So that if it ever comes to the point where wiping you out is an option again, we're going to make sure that people don't identify you as real. So wiping you out will be even easier than wiping out Hamas, which is a euphemism for Palestinians in Jewish culture. You see how they don't make the distinction? So I don't make the distinction. So Arabs' largest, darn. I'm not gonna find it. Damn shame. It was awesome because it would make you vomit to hear the words from it was a lady too, the Israeli government representative speaking on indigenous people's rights and asserting the idea that is Jewish people identify as indigenous people. When you compare that to the way Jewish people identify themselves in relations to the indigenous people of America, they see Native Americans as subhuman, animalistic, barbarous, pagan, backwards thinking, uncivilized, uneducated, unenlightened, unhuman trash that is just taking up space that could otherwise be owned for better purposes or something like that. He goes like, actually, I was listening to Disney songs yesterday when I was cooking my food, and it left my playlist on YouTube Music, so it started going on to random YouTube Disney songs, and it pulled up the Pocahontas song, and you understand, the Pocahontas song is great. It wasn't, I doubt it was written by a Native American, but in it, this is like what I call the Carlos Castaneda effect. Carlos Castaneda was proven to be a fraud, okay? So they're like, okay, the person that he claims to have spoken to, Don Juan, and learned all this stuff from, never existed. That's a complete fraud. All right, that's fair. So the next step, so is Abraham, and so is Moses, okay? So is Jesus. Muhammad might be a historic figure, but his story is a complete fraud. The Buddha's another on the completely flip side, because the Buddha's a completely historic figure and his teachings are accurate. On another sense, they're not magic either. Just it's like a ancient, you want to call it ancient psychological language. It has no magic. There's no spells. There's no gods. There's nothing other than self realizations. So, but in the Carlos Castaneda, in his effort, he wanted his nefarious quest to make something marketable. He basically had to self-reflect and look inside and think, okay, now, if I was writing this to me, and he was an anthropology student, so he had access to a lot of out non-Anglosphere source material, okay? Including Hinduism and shit like that was started to gain popularity, but he had access to stuff that he had studied. So based on the stuff that he had in the back of his head that he also thought was ridiculous because he was a fraudster, all he was in it was for the money, was that he had to think in order to use his creativity and come up with the con. He had to think really hard. Okay, what would shock me? What kind of teachings would I find shocking and backwards? And so he essentially had to come up with, oh, this is the stupidest thing. So no personal history. That's a big component of the teachings of Don Juan. No personal history. So because Carlos Castaneda was able to look inside of himself and see, oh, my personal history and everybody else's personal history is something that they really, really, really cling to, I know I'll make us shocking to say, oh, that's not true. Your personal history actually, and which is, I'll just pull it up real quick here, which is very kind of true. Like here, I mean, it's not untrue. This is a quote from Timothy Leary. I believe we are imprisoned by the past. It's necessary to escape the shackles of what has happened before if we are going to survive in the future. This particular line is the same message that I have advocated in every page of the many books that I have written. We must free ourselves from the rearview mirror and move to the future. So that's what I mean is he was able to tap into the truth by being able to recognize without being able to recognize. Oh, don't tell me it went to the very top. Oh my gosh, that is, wow. Let me see most popular. Oh, I'm not going to find it. So he was able to discover the truth based on, actually, let me see this one too. Slavoj Žižek, wisdom. Okay, so this guy here, this is another example. Show you.
There is a point of so-called Christian, not only Christian wisdom, to which I'm totally opposed. I'm generally opposed wisdom. I think wisdom is the most disgusting thing you can imagine. Wisdom is the most conformist thing you can imagine. Wisdom is this, whatever you do, a wise man will come and justify it, Like you do something risky and you succeed. There will be a wise man who will come and say something like, I don't know, in Slovene we have a proverb, maybe you have a similar one, only those who risk profit and so on and so on. Let's say you do the same thing but fail. A wise man will come and he will say something like, in Slovene we had a vulgar saying which says you cannot urinate against the wind or something like that. This is wisdom. Whatever you do, a wise guy will come and wisdom.
But it's so interesting that a philosopher should be against wisdom.
We all are. Your Kierkegaard knew this. Kierkegaard was anti-wise man par excellence. Wisdom is pagan. Liquid. Okay, not going to my Stalinist stuff. But what I want to once I made a mental experiment, if you don't believe me. Let's take, I will say something. I will say, I don't know how to say it, I'm too ironic with all this pathos, Why are we running after these miserable earthly pleasures? Think about eternity. The only satisfaction is eternity. If I were to say it with proper pathos, it would sound a deep thing to say.
It sounded...
Now, let's say the opposite. Why run after the specter of eternity? Carpe diem, grasp what you have here. It sounds wise. Now I will say the third option. Why be caught in a contrast between eternity and temporary existence? The true wisdom is to see eternity in fleeting temporary pleasures. It is wise. Then I say the fourth variation. We are forever condemned between the two. A wise man accepts this. Whatever I say, that's my point. You can sell it as a wisdom. This is a wisdom. And
But My whole point is that the concept of wisdom comes from the same source as foolishness, and that's the human psyche. And the human psyche is able to develop or create wisdom when it can see what it holds sacred and smash it. Because what it holds sacred is always some kind of delusion that's not critical to an individual core identity. I came up with my concept of wisdom. My little theory on wisdom is when I was a manager at a vitamin store in South Bay Galleria, I was working on a storyline, and the story had to do with forming identity. And this was before I actually was able to identify Joseph Campbell. I had seen Mythos on PBS because TV was a thing back then, and I had seen some of his interview, and the little bit that I saw blew my freaking mind. But I didn't know who Joseph Campbell was. I hadn't been able to refine him, so to speak. So I was just winging it, and I had no exposure to Carl Jung, or nothing to it, Friedrich Nietzsche, and never heard of Marshall McLuhan, and definitely not Wilhelm Reich. This was about 2008, 2009, something like that. Well, maybe 2007. So anyways, so I came up with I thought it was, I don't know math. I suck at math. So I was like, oh, you know what? If I can, how can I make this sound more real? I was like, oh, you know what? Well, they say math is the language of life or some stupid shit like that. Let me try to associate some kind of math with this. That way I can make it seem more valid. And I was like, all right, I remember in this thing, I was thinking like, okay, well, I remember I suck at algebra. Well, I don't really suck at algebra because I only took pre-algebra in all of my schooling. I only made it through basically 9th grade. So I didn't go to 10, 11, and 12. But pre-algebra, I took 2 semesters. One, I got an F, and then another semester, I had the D. So because of budget cutbacks in the school district. Oh, my bad. Yeah, because of budget cutbacks in the school district, the dean was demoted. They got rid of the dean, which used to be a disciplinary administrator, and they made her a teacher because they wouldn't want to fire her. So they demoted her to a teacher, and I guess her math. So she was my first period algebra teacher. That's when I was 12 years old. That's when I started experimenting with marijuana. And a friend of mine would steal marijuana from his mom's boyfriend, who was a dealer, and then bring it. And in the morning, we would meet on Sepulveda and Devonshire, and we walk to the gas station right next to the freeway. We buy a soda, and then we go in the bathroom. We turn the soda can into, I think most of the time we pour out the soda too. Because of time. We'd turn the soda can into a pipe, and then we smoke the marijuana, and then we'd go to first period. Okay? So during that time, I was going to first period high with the former dean. And one time I remember I got super high. We smoked a lot. We took I used to count the hits, like 5, 6 hits. Ooh, I'm so high. One time we took into the 20 hits. I was freaking blitzed out of my head. I got to class like 10, 15 minutes late. And there was like a cutoff period for tardy. And again, this was the dean who was formerly the disciplinary expert. So I walk into class reeking of marijuana too, because I didn't even think about that. I wasn't that sophisticated at the time. So as I get into the class, this redheaded girl, I remember in particular, she was I was like 2 aisles away from the door, the entrance door, and the teacher's desk was on the other side of the room from that door. So I walk in, and it's really late, and my eyes are, I can't see them, but I could tell that they're super crazy high eyes. And I walk into class, and I go to my second aisle. So there's one aisle right against the wall, and then there's a walkway, and then there's the other aisle, and then there's a walkway. So I have to go to the second walkway. to walk to my seat, which is like 3 or 4 seats back. And then the redheaded girl is sitting 1 seat ahead of me. So I'm walking past her. She's like, she turns her head, and I'm like, oh, shh, shh. That's how, and my teacher, I kind of catch a glimpse of her, and Miss Signs? No, Miss Sane Sinus? I don't know her name. I can't remember. But I do remember seeing a look of almost disappointment, so to speak. So, but I just go down, put my head down. I didn't think I put my head down. Come to think of it. But the interesting thing is, that semester, I got 5 D's. No, I got 4 D's, 1 F, and 1 B. And my B was in pre-algebra, the class that I was going to high all the time. Very interesting. I mean, just a retrospective. Something that I thought about when I got my report card. I was like, wow, that's crazy. So what, so getting high, where was I going with this? Introspective. Oh, so I'm thinking of how algebra played a weird part in my life. So it's like, oh, let me try to associate a formula for identity with an algebraic formula. So I came up with, all right, well, how do we do this? X is, whatever. So, okay, so I'll use 1. So I'm 1. 1 X equals 1. Yeah, I think that's what I think it was. I don't remember because it was a long time ago. I don't even think that's right. But it was the whole point of the formula was that. Oh, no, my bad. It's reverse. X is U times 1. The 1 represents any external factor. Anything external. So it's an outside thing. You are the X. X times 1 equals X. No matter what you think is contributing to altering your core identity, it never actually is. It may alter the way you act. It may alter the way you think. It may alter the way you feel, but it doesn't alter your core identity. So, religion is a 1. And people think that people that are religious, people that identify as Jews or Christians or Muslims, Ab comes in between that formula. Abraham, who's the father of many nations, divide and conquer. Not one species, many nations. Very important language. Abraham is not the father of a single people. He is the father of many nations, divide and conquer. And like Henry David Thoreau gets into it, it'll divide even the individual. It gets you to be like, no, I want to fit in more than I want to be myself. So, on that note, oh, dang. Instant. So, I believe with that, I am done on this commentary. But my whole point is, Jewish people are the enemy of indigenous people everywhere. And that is why they are killing Palestinians. Because Palestinians are the Semitic people who never left. They were killed at great numbers, but they never left. And at one point, their ancestors, if this matters, were the Jews. Jewish, Muslim, and Christian, you get it? They're superficial designations. Race is a superficial designation as it is. Semitic, Aryan, or Indo-European, whatever you want to call it, Latino, all that kind of shit. That is just a superficial designation anyways. Genetically speaking, the Palestinian people, their ancestors never left. And they were never brought in from another group. Like the Jews, even in their history, I mean, they doctor their history, but at least one part that we do know is accurate is that Cyrus the Great, when he conquered Babylon, he exported a population of slaves from Babylon to Canaan and introduced monotheism to a polytheistic population, which has since identified themselves as Jews. And that population that Cyrus the Great put there, they never left. They talk about the Jewish community today uses Hadrian, the emperor of Rome, as a as a historical reference to the proof that they were displaced, because Jews, thinking that they're chosen people, went on a massive fucking killing spree. And you gotta understand, they weren't initially attacking the Romans because the Romans will fucking kill them. So what did they do? The Jewish people started killing everybody that wasn't directly affiliated with Rome, because it was the most vulnerable, until the victims of the slaughter started bitching so much to Rome, be like, hey, you're our protector. You're supposed to be worse. Who's keeping law and order around here? So at that point, it was something like over 100,000 people had been slaughtered in order for Jewish people to again assert that this is their homeland. And Hadrian was like, all right, well, I don't got time for this shit, so let me just go in there and just brutally fucking beat the living shit out of them. So, okay, you kill 100,000, I'm gonna kill 1,000,000. And then anybody that's not killed, I'm gonna fucking send away. Okay, so they get sent away. But that's not everybody. He doesn't clear out the whole population and bring in a fresh new batch of people from all over the place. He takes a large portion of the population and sends them out. But the large portion of the population that stays, they stay throughout the rest of all of history. That's the genetic, whatever the fuck you want to call it. The people that leave, that's so many intermingling. That's why it was Netanyahu's sons. Might as well just. Benjamin Netanyahu's sons, his DNA was leaked. And he's not even freaking Jewish. What you would call Jewish. X. Oh my gosh. I'm on Twitter. Look at, this is his DNA. So there. Netanyahu goes back to Spain. But what you would consider Semitic people in, and yes, it was Hadrian that renamed it Palestine, because because the way he looked at it was, look, okay, the more what he saw from a human standpoint, a human psychology standpoint, you give an inch, they take a foot. So we let these people call it Israel, and we let these people call it Judea and stuff like that. And because we did that, we messed up, because that gave them the notion that they had the right to do whatever they wanted to other people that they saw as to people that they saw as others in that territory. And once they, that gives power to psychotic rabbis, because it's always psychotic rabbis. Just like in the Celtic culture, it's Druids. There's a very deep connection there too. But you have these psychotic rabbis that pop up, and then they start saying, oh, and actually, it was around the time of Hadrian that the Mishnah laws were established. And that had to do with the whole Jewish identity, because identity, the Jewish identity takes away from the human identity, and without the human identity, you have the more deeply entrenched a religious identity is, the smaller, that's what I mean, the ab is, the come between, the least significant the individual identity is. And when you don't have an individual identity, I believe that this quote from Marshall McLuhan is true. All forms of violence are a quest for identity. When you live out in the frontier, you have no identity. Therefore, you get very tough. You have to prove that you are somebody. And so you become very violent. And so identity is always accompanied by violence. This seems paradoxical to you. Ordinary people find the need for violence as they lose their identities. But this also goes in with here. What the heck? Oh, perfect. Psh, dang, I didn't even mean to press that on accident, but that's exactly the one I wanted. Synchronicity, baby. Okay, so right here. So this is from a Jewish doctor that teaches right now at Stanford University. I don't think he still teaches. I think he retired. But pastoralist people, nomadic pastoralist people, he's trying to emphasize, because again, this is the culture that they tried to put him into. This is what he came out of in order to be the man that he is today. So he's really trying to hit home without, I mean, it's not just them though. It's not just Jewish people. This is the Mongols. This is the Comanche. So this is a human thing. The pastoralist people, nomadic pastoralist people, these are cow people. These are people who wander around with their goats or their camels or their horses. These are shepherds in contrast to traditional agriculturalists or far rare traditional hunter-gatherers. So nomadic pastoralists versus everyone else. And what a boatload of anthropology has shown is that nomadic pastoralists have higher rates of violence both within group and without group. Nomadic pastoralists are vastly more likely than other groups to have standing armies, warrior classes, to have leadership derived from people who have had the most success as a warrior, to have myths built around their religion, that success in war, that violent acclaim in war is your gateway to heaven, or whatever afterlife is deemed more desirable than this life. The violence makes them, their life experience, say like, hey, there's got to be something better than this, because this life sucks, because everybody here treats everybody else like there's some kind of competition as opposed to cooperation. And they only find cooperation in war. But war, as said by MacArthur, is hell. So they only find a sense of meaning in hell. That's where they find their identity, in violence. Okay? This is a consistent finding. Lots and lots in these nomadic pastoralists are the ones who came up with warfare on a certain level and warrior classes. So this is why you see Israel and Israelis. No Israelis are trying to kill Netanyahu for being a massive, not fascist, genociding, mass murdering demon. A counter force to an antichrist, so to speak, in Judaism. Putting Judaism on a global platform that is endangering the entire Jewish population. They don't see it like that, so they're not trying to kill him. They just see it as a debate. So, is it right to do it or wrong to do it? I don't really know, but he's Jewish. So, it's better to just take a moment and to try to come to an understanding. But if it was the Jewish population that was being targeted as mass killing, Jews would be doing what? They'd be trying to get Benjamin Netanyahu killed in order to stop him. but they don't identify with the human species. They don't identify, and this violence, in one sense, they're passive to it. They're blasé. They still contribute. They don't teach their kids that Benjamin Netanyahu is, if he's Jewish, if he is really Jewish, and he's acting exactly like Hitler, and he's a chosen person that has insight from Judaism and all of this divine knowledge passed on through Yahweh and the rabbis. Again, the rabbis are psycho, because what has Benjamin Netanyahu at the level he is a freaking rabbi. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Is a rabbi who told Benjamin Netanyahu he is going to be the John the Baptist to the Jewish Messiah, to the real Jewish Messiah. And the rabbi told him, now the rabbi is dead, but the rabbi told, shoot, I wonder if I can find that. The rabbi told Benjamin Netanyahu that he was going to prepare Israel for Messiah, rabbi. The Messiah prophecy, Hans Benjamin, this guy right here, Lubavitcher Rebbe, after he becomes the Messiah, okay? So Benjamin Netanyahu is stuck in this because of a rabbi. So I don't know if I lost track or if this all still makes sense, but I think I got to close it down because I'm already at 41 minutes, and I just thought this was going to be like a 2-minute clip. But anyways, Jews in America, by definition of them saying, I am a Jew, they are telling you exactly what they are. And for you to identify, compassion, empathize, trust them, engage them is a complete mistake. Because another thing here, boom, 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 boom. This is why. Oh, my bad. That's not it. Color association. This is it. Proximity is key. Proximity is key. And why do Jews act normal when they know that they are not normal? When two individuals interact, the sicker person determines a relationship. The more extreme and rigid the person, the greater her. This is a term. Look at this is funny what this transgender. And I don't want to get distracted. ADD. Sorry. This Timothy Leary, he created this term to get beyond gender in writing, so that the reader can identify, be it a him or a her. Okay, you get it? It's simple. The greater her interpersonal pull, the stronger her ability, that's his or her ability to shape relationships with others. The withdrawn catatonic, the irretrievable criminal, the compulsively flirtatious charmer can inevitably provoke the expected response from a more well-balanced other. We meet here a lowest common denominator process, a Gresham's law of interpersonal collisions. Sick people control the interpersonal interaction. The sicker or more maladaptively rigid, the more power to determine the nature of the relationship. When somebody tells you a Jew, that I'm a Jew, I'm Jewish, they're telling you that I am way more sicker than you will ever fucking be, because I have totally separated myself from my humanity, and you will never be as sick as me. So let's be friends.